It's Hot 97, Laura Stylez. I am here with Kast.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is weird for me. I'm almost never here.
It's important that you're here because today we're celebrating something super special. Two iconic brands coming together for a special collaboration. We have the amazing Krink with us.
Hey.
Yes, representing Krink. Listen, let me show you guys. We'll show you some little stickers. We'll show you an amazing hoodie that's dropping.
Fire.
Fire! Look at that. A wonderful blurb. Let me see. Let me hold this up. About graffiti and hip hop. It's really something super special. And when we saw the prototype, we were very excited because, it's important that we're keeping it really close to hip hop culture. Graffiti is part of hip hop culture. And our man Kast definitely dabbled.
Man, listen, I love graffiti. And I feel like graffiti isn't spoken about as much as it should be in the hip hop culture. But, this might be our first collaboration. We've done one other thing up here with artists, with graffiti artists.
Yeah.
This is a very big collaboration, like the first type of product that we've done with anybody, So it's only fitting.
It's true. So we're dropping it's a limited number of hoodies, so make sure you get them. But we also have markers.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, for the audience that is not familiar, and there's people here that are geeking out because they're so excited about the collaboration. But tell us a little bit about how you started.
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me, and thank you, for the collaboration. It's really exciting for me because I grew up in New York, and I'm old enough that radio was really important for listening to getting exposed to new music, really important for hip hop, and probably the earliest exposure, where we would record the radio shows
Right.
and then listen to it on our Walkman, that kind of stuff. So I'm from New York. I grew up. Graffiti was already a part of the city. It was, you went out, it was there, it was part of just the landscape. And in graffiti, there's a lot of do-it-yourself culture, right? You got to find the spot, you got to find the materials,
Right.
you got to figure out what you're doing, and that's really ingrained in graffiti. And so for me, experimentation and making markers, and you mess around with spray paint caps, you mess around with different materials, and essentially I'm from an era of whatever you could find, whatever you could do, you would just experiment and try to figure it out, make mistakes and just learn from it. And then so eventually I just long story short, I could be pretty long-winded about this, but I experimented with a lot of different markers and came up with my own marker that had a specific style. Or I should go back. So in New York, people used to make their own markers and write on the insides of trains. So on the outsides, you'd see a lot of spray paint, and on the insides, you'd see a lot of markers. And that had a big influence, and those homemade markers were called mops. And writing on trains, it was kind of specific. You would go to a train yard, you would go to a train layup, you'd go to the spot, you'd do your thing, and then you'd leave. And so I'm not part of the train era. I grew up riding the trains, but I'm more of the streets era, which is really different. And you had to walk around the streets, you have to have a marker, so it couldn't be too messy. It had to be permanent. So a lot of the train inks, they faded in the sun, but you didn't have to deal with that because it was all underground.
Right.
So I had just a different kind of, need for what I wanted to do. So while that was an influence of making something on my own, I had to bring it up out of the underground and onto the street and deal with that environment. And so I just experimented with a lot of different things and came up with Krink, which is the first ink and markers. And it was permanent. It had its own aesthetic. It was really drippy. It was fat. It was legible. And it was really just very different. There was nothing like it on the street at the time.
Yeah, right. Because I remember seeing it, right? And I'm just like, because I dabbled in it. So I was, I was pretty up on all the type of markers that were up there. And when I first saw that, I was like, well, how are they doing that? Like, so we in turn, because, you saying that you have to figure it out and figure this out, we had to in turn try to figure out, because at the time you wouldn't really know what anybody was using, right?
Right.
So from my perspective, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the tags and everything done with the Krink, and I'm like, how are they doing that? And why? So, so we would experiment. We would take like markers and fill them with all types of different ink. Try to like, they used to sell these shoe polishes back in the day, right? Where you could unscrew the shoe polish and it'll be like a little brush. We tried that, but like, it's not the same. How are they doing that? And it took a long time to get out. Well, like once the word was out, the word was out. But if you didn't know, it was just like, I was so frustrated.
Right. And how'd you perfect the drip? How do you have that?
Right. Well, that was part of it too, was basically, there's different types of graffiti, right? But in a lot of it, it comes down to style.
Right.
And like, you want to have an original style. You want to be unique. You want to do your own thing and kind of stand out. So making Krink and making my own marker, which didn't exist on the street, I had this like technological like advancement. I had this advantage of people would be like, yo, what is that?
Right.
What is he doing? How is he doing that? I want to do that. And then they would experiment and they had to play catch up because at the time there was really no competition. It was just me and my friends who were doing that on the street. And so we really stood out, and that was huge for graffiti.
So you have the street cred because of it, right? Recognition. But at what point did you decide to make it a business? Like a real legit business?
So I was, writing graffiti. I made my own ink. I made my own markers. I was doing it just for graffiti. I was just doing it to do it. That's it. There was no business. There was no pure graffiti. And that was in the 90s. So I lived in California for a while. When I moved back, I moved to Manhattan. And I met the A-Life dudes when they first started.
Nice.
And A-Life, they had a store. They were designers. They knew about marketing. They knew about all this stuff I didn't know anything about. And they were the ones who were really kind of like, hey, you should sell this. Like, we could sell in the store. We could help you brand it. We could help you, market it, et cetera. And at first I was like, who's going to buy this? Nobody wants to buy this. Because I'm also from an era where you didn't buy anything.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, I was like, who's going to buy this? That's like, nobody buys this. This isn't what you buy. And they were like, trust us. It's cool. It's interesting. People are going to be interested in it. So really, as a creative project, I did it and made... I made a bunch of the first products were just bottles, sold out immediately, pre like the way things sell out today. Like this was like either 99. That was probably more like 01.
Okay.
Sold out, made more, sold out, and eventually became really one of the best selling products in their shop.
That's so wild.
Yeah, it was for me too. It was really crazy, and then it just became this thing that I was making it in my apartment. I was I touched every bottle, I labeled every bottle, I did everything myself, and having to learn and make mistakes, and then at the same time, A-Life they're a cool downtown shop, and this is like the internet of course existed, but it wasn't like it is today. So just coming to New York, so many people come to New York, they go shopping and they have their inspiration trips, and people started going to A-Life and seeing Krink and then trying to contact me about it to carry it. And it just grew from there, and I got into some nice shops and had good relationships with people, and it was really great.
I mean, okay, so what happened? I'm just curious, like, what were your thoughts when we first approached you? Well, No Company is the agency that approached you about the collaboration.
I mean, for me, Hot 97, I was like, okay, what's up? Let's go. I mean, for me, Hot 97 is, it's New York, it's hip hop. it's like I said, the radio was a big part of just me growing up, like hip hop on the radio, and I just think it's great to collaborate with like local New York brands that have the kind of history I think that we have and share together, you know, and have come up. I mean, graffiti, I think, you know, it's of course within hip hop. It also stands on its own, but
Facts.
the relationship goes back really to day one in New York City.
Right.
So for me, it's a no-brainer.
No, it's so exciting. I mean, we have a very limited run. So if you are watching this right now, go to hot97.com/shop. Go to the shop. Well, you guys will be selling it too on your website.
Yes.
Snatch one up and get one of these amazing limited edition markers. Definitely a collector's piece. You know, we love a collector's piece.
Yeah, and be careful what you do with it because it's not our fault.
Yeah. But it's out for sale. We also have some friends and family t-shirts. I have one. I feel bad showing this because it's friends and family. So if you're lucky enough to get your hands on one,
I don't feel like friend or family because I don't have one.
fire. But the hoodies are definitely for sale. I mean, I just think it's a beautiful collaboration of two iconic brands coming together, and we're so excited. This is the first of many. Hot 97 doesn't really do merch collaborations like that, but with the agency No Company, they decided to bring that back, and they're very thoughtful with the people they want to align with. And I just think it's amazing that it's a learning moment for a lot of people too, a lot of our younger audience to go back and really learn and take in a lot of the history of graffiti, which I think, like to Kast's point, is not celebrated enough. And it's such a monumental part of hip hop. So it is a pleasure for us, you know, to be able to sit here with you and talk to you about your story. And we're excited for these to go on sale.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so cop one on sale now. Hot97.com.